This podcast is brought to you by On Track Studio.
Welcome to Mind Your Head, a space for people to share their stories, talk openly and honestly about their own mental health challenges, and to give listeners some comfort in knowing you're not alone. My aim is to give people the courage and confidence to have difficult and vulnerable conversations with loved ones, to better understand each other and to improve their own mental health. It's not easy, and it never will be, but conversations change mindsets. My first guest is my good mate Chris Loock. In this episode we talk about childhood trauma, love, heartbreak, family, forgiveness and all things mental health. Hope you enjoy. Chris Loock.
Elliott, Hagen.
Welcome to Mind Your Head. Thanks for coming along.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
It's all right. I think it's worth mentioning that you are the very first guest on the podcast. So,
mate, I'm absolutely honoured.
I'm honoured to have you on. Thank you very much. And I thought about where the best place for us to start. And you, like me, like many others listening, that the people that we are today is a result of some of the things that we experienced in our childhood. Mm-hmm. Can you describe to me what life was like growing up in South Africa?
Yeah, so, as you mentioned, I'm obviously South African. So I was born there. Both my parents are South African. So, kind of moved over here when I was 11, so 2001. So pretty much more Australian now than South African. But, I had a really good childhood. But, we grew up on a farm. We had, a big peach orchard. We had cows, sheep. I was pretty much just like a little farm boy running around. So, pretty stark contrast to, now more, sort of coastal city lifestyle. But I think it was a really cool environment to grow up in, as a child, because you sort of had all the animals around and your friends could come around and you had the dirt bikes and, it was really cool sort of growing up like that. So, we were kind of afforded sort of everything. I guess our family was sort of upper, a little bit more upper class, mid to upper sort of class. And mum and dad always did really well with their jobs and that sort of stuff. So they sort of gave us everything we needed growing up, and it was just really cool having that environment to grow up in. And I think that's kind of how they wanted to raise us as well, because they both grew up on farms, and I just think it gave us that life experience kind of early, which is cool.
And then what made them decide to leave to go to Australia?
So obviously I think a lot of South African people have got pretty similar stories.
I've heard, I was going to say that, I've heard of some pretty hectic stories from them.
So I think for us it wasn't as crazy. There's definitely some crazy stuff happening in the country with, obviously apartheid happening, and earlier when I was younger, I would have been very young when apartheid sort of happened, and there's obviously a lot of racial issues going on between the black people and the white people. And, I went to an Afrikaans school, so I was raised speaking Afrikaans. And
you still do, don't you?
Yeah. Not allowed to speak English at home.
Oh, aren't you?
Nah, Dad always calls it the enemy's language. So he's still,
that's classic.
He's still very Afrikaans. But it's good because he sort of keeps us, keeps that in the family, and we
still part of your identity, pretty strong.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't want to let that go either, and want to pass some of that on to my kids if I ever go down that road. It was kind of tough in that sense, I guess. For my parents especially, because they sort of went through the brunt of it and experienced all that, especially with farming and stuff. When that apartheid happened, there was different laws being approved, and there were sort of big race wars and people taking white farmers' land and just setting up camp on there. There's a lot of murdering going on, and obviously my dad comes from a farming family. There's he's the youngest of 4 brothers. They're all still over there doing that. They're just really tough humans. So it was tough in that sense. So to answer your question, I guess that's kind of what triggered it all. There are a few things that happened when, especially in our neighbourhood, that sort of alerted mum and dad to go, hey, our kids don't really have a future in this country anymore. We want to take them somewhere safe and give them a childhood, because I think the way we were raised like adults from a pretty young age, because we had to be. We didn't really, we had to be aware of our surroundings. We had to do all that. We couldn't really ride our bikes on the street. We had to hide if people walk past, you know,
Yeah.
and like I never really mention it as like black or white people. Like I just see everyone as people, but because one of my best friends was a black African guy called President. His name was President, and he was like the best.
His real name was President.
Yeah, his actual name was President, which was hilarious.
Perfect.
Like now looking back, but like when I was in it, it was just like his name's President. Like I was just a kid, you know.
So you were very like street smarts. Like
I think
then,
I think we were like kind of street savvy as kids. So, and I think that still stays with me a lot, you know. Like I'm always watching my back, or
I feel like you're always aware of things.
Yeah, I'm super aware of everything, like in my surroundings. So, yeah, it's sort of, you know, that gets sort of ingrained in you as a kid. But yeah, like I guess that's the reason why we moved over. We had there's like a gnarly story of when this is sort of how I describe it, like from a kid's sort of perspective, and there's probably a fair bit of GST added to the story, but
needs to be.
It's like I always tell the story to like my friends of like when we were at a barbecue at our neighbour's house across the road, and my dad had like a little security beeper thing on his belt. Like he was one of those kooky dads with the big love your dad, but he had this kooky belt with like all the contraptions on it, like a Swiss Army knife, like
a fanny pack.
Yeah, and he had a 9mm gun on there as well, and then he'd have like his like security beeper thing, because that's just normal over there. Yeah. And we obviously the whole house like got an alarm system, and we were at the barbecue at the neighbours, and the alarms go off across the road. So Dad and his best mate Quibus, like at the time, and they've both got their little belts on, and they've had a few, you know, like a few brandies on the rocks.
The neighbourhood watch.
Yeah, the neighbourhood watch was out. The boys were ready. So Dad's like, all right, we're going to go check this out, like full military mode, because Dad was like in the army, and I think Quibus was as well. And so they're just frothing. They're like, let's go, like it's on. So they run across the road, and it actually there were 3 guys trying to break into our house.
Yeah.
And they have, what they do is they use like mud, and they throw like either rocks or mud onto the windows to see if the alarms would go off. And obviously it triggered the alarms. So eventually like Dad and Quibus like found these guys, and we had like a big paddock of like lucerne, like crops. And these 3 guys like take off into the lucerne because it's tall. So they're trying to like hide in there. So my dad's just hooking it in there with his like 9mm. And this is how Dad sort of told it to me, and he probably do a better job of telling the story, but he just found the first guy like laying down. So he was like trying to hide, but because when you run through those fields, everything just folds over, so you can just follow wherever the person's gone. And apparently he was just lying there, like just pretending like he wasn't there. And so Dad sort of grabbed him, and like Dad said it was pretty intense. Like at one point he thought about shooting one of them, and then he ended up like flipping his revolver around and like smacking the dude with it, and like grabbed his belt, pulled his pants down, and like tied his belt around his ankles, and then set off after the next guy. And then I think they ended up catching up with 2 of them, and the third one jumped over the fence to the neighbour's yard. Yeah. So I think that was, and then there was like court proceedings and stuff afterwards, and basically because Dad was white, like they were just like, this isn't worth our time, sort of threw it out. And then I think that's probably where Dad went, holy shit, like we don't have the rights that we used to have, and like it's just not safe here for the kids.
Really hit home, didn't it?
Yeah, I think that was probably one of the reasons. And obviously us being kids, there's probably a lot more reasons that they saw that we didn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we just wanted to hang out with our mates and have a good time.
They probably would have hit a lot of stuff from you guys too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So that's the reason basically.
Yeah. How did the rest of the family react to you guys leaving? Because they would have been proud South Africans.
Yeah, they didn't react well at all.
Yeah.
I think Mum's side was all right. Like my uncle and auntie had actually moved here before us. So I think that sort of paved the way for us to come over and, you know, sort of helped on Mum's side. And then Mum's, my grandma and grandpa also came over as well. So from her side, it was fine. They were more English-speaking South Africans though. So Mum grew up in like near Durban sort of thing. So that sort of area. So more sort of English-speaking area. And Mum's actually an English teacher, so it's pretty funny that like my dad got married to her sort of thing. But they were fine with it. But then Dad's side is like super pro South Africa, like wanted to stay there, and they basically just ripped my dad to shreds for leaving the country. This is our country. We were raised here. You know, the big like masculine mentality that South Africans have.
Do you think that took a toll on your dad? That
huge.
Yeah, massive.
Yeah, massive. I think it was just a big pride thing for Dad, you know, and moving over here as well, like he couldn't get a job because he was working in like sort of like you have to get security clearance because my dad's he worked in the army and he's an aeronautical engineer, so he knows a lot of stuff like that normal people don't know, basically. So it took him like years. I think it took him like 4 years or something to get his security clearance in Australia. Yeah. So he was just struggling. Like Dad was doing anything he could. He was like picking strawberries. He was sweeping out like storage containers. Like it basically just degraded him. Yeah. And because he's such a proud guy, like he struggled with that like so hard. And then obviously Mum, we got in on a visa because Mum was a teacher. So she had the skill set to be able to get a visa at that time. Yeah. I don't know what the visa was called, but that's kind of what got the family in. Yeah. And then, like that was probably the toughest years of their lives, I reckon, like going through those sort of 3-4 year period, probably 5 year period where we first moved because Dad was just, he was rattled and it really like affected him. So
did you realise that at that age or? Cause you did? Yeah.
Yeah. There were side effects of him feeling like that. So but,
and how hard was it? I mean, adjusting to the Australian culture and coming in, and you didn't know English.
So we did. It was really hard adjusting. Yeah,
because we're a strange society and a strange culture.
So weird.
It's so weird.
Yeah, really strange. Like, and I always tell you guys this story because, you know, we went to primary school together. Yeah. But I never hung out with you at primary school. No. Yeah, I didn't get to know you until after school, really. Yeah. I was like the loser kid at school because I couldn't even speak English properly. Yeah. Like, I could speak, like, we got taught English like you get taught, like, Japanese over here.
Yeah, real basic.
Yeah, but Mum was an English teacher, so that helped a lot, you know. Like, she would help us with all our assignments and do all that stuff. And, you know, I ended up doing pretty well in English at school. But that was really tough at the start. You know, I sort of hung out more with, like, the library crew and played my Tamagotchi in the corner, you know. Like, I wasn't, like, out doing what you guys were doing, like playing footy and stuff like that. You know, I just didn't really talk to anyone because, there's, you know, people would call you like a dickhead and stuff. And I was like, what is that? Like, people are calling me a penis head? I don't understand what this means. Like, so I'd go home to Mum and like tell her all this stuff. And I'm like, what do these kids keep calling me this? And then obviously eventually you figure out that it's like a term of affection sort of. But at the start I was just like, these kids suck.
It's weird. You mean it to your mates more than the people you don't like.
Yeah. You know? And you could tell my parents were...
each other.
Fully. Like we just... Yeah, exactly. Like we still do it. Like we just rip on each other and then we laugh, you know. But when you're from another culture, and
you have no idea.
You don't have that. You know, Australians have that sarcastic humour. Yeah, it's just, and I think Dad struggled a lot with it too. He thought everyone was just assholes, basically. So I would come home crying like all the time, and I'd just be like, "These kids are picking on me. Like they call me this and that." And I guess you just have to be a bit more sarcastic and thick-skinned growing up here. Whereas in South Africa, everyone's really polite and nice and kind of straightforward. So if they don't like you, they'll just tell you. They're not going to like be sarcastic about it, you know.
Some passive-aggressive stuff.
Yeah. So I think, that was really hard for me. And then I'd go home and that would reflect, sort of reflect that onto my parents and go, you know, this sucks. I hate this country. Like, take me home. I want to go back to my friends. Like, all that sort of stuff.
And they're already dealing with that too, probably themselves.
Yeah, you know, and they're trying to get jobs and just pay the rent and stuff, you know, and like, I think we bought a place, so just trying to like, you know, pay the mortgage and that, like, was even a little bit tough at the start because Dad didn't have a proper job, so they had so much going on, and then we were coming home going, this country sucks, like, everyone's assholes. Like,
what do you think the turning point was when you started to fit in and make friends? And was it through sport? I know how sporty you are now. Was it?
Yeah.
It's always a good avenue in Australia. If you need to make friends, you play a bit of sport and you've got all these teammates. So
yeah. Well, I think, as you know now, I'm a pretty chatty sort of person. Like, I talk a lot of shit. So back then I probably wasn't. Yeah. I was like still sort of learning how to fit in and all that sort of stuff. And I've always been kind of a little bit cheeky and, you know, like poking people and annoying everyone. So I think, yeah, that was the biggest turning point. It was probably just like starting to play team sports and stuff. So that's where I met like all you guys too, you know, and we have like our massive group of friends.
Yeah.
It was all through that. So it was kind of like just doing my talking on the field rather than saying anything. Yeah. And then I think eventually people, you know, if you play good footy,
people start noticing
you, and they go, oh, like,
come be friends with us.
Yeah, exactly. Like, come hang, like you're all right, sort of thing. You know. Yeah. So it's and I think it's funny, like the correlation between that and like, you know, you look at like apartheid and how Nelson Mandela used like rugby to unify like races and stuff. I think that just applies across the board still, and people talk about it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what sport sort of gets used for. So so that sort of, once I started doing that, it just like opened up everything. And then they were just like, well, we're playing cricket too, and then I'm on the cricket team. Now we're playing tennis and doing that. And I was also always super competitive, and you know, my parents, my dad and all his brothers played rugby, and they played pretty high level over there, and my cousins. So it's just like in our blood sort of thing. And so it's just the classic South African story, you know.
So when you did come home and you're, I guess, not feeling the greatest about school and about living in Australia, how did your dad sort of react to that?
I don't know. I don't really think Dad was so caught up in his own stuff, he couldn't really deal with a lot of things. Like, he was having like kind of a crisis of identity a little bit, and like a lot of self-confidence issues. But I think it was really hard. I can see that now. I couldn't see it when I was at the time. Like, you know, you would talk to Dad and he'd be kind of just angry all the time. And like, I love Dad so much. He's amazing, but he was just going through the roughest time, and he was sort of projecting that onto us. So it was, it was really tough to understand at the time, because I was just like, why are you being such a dick, you know? Yeah, he was just trying to deal with his own stuff, and I think that it was a tough time for him. And I think Mum was probably carrying us at that point, because she's always been like the rock of the family, and she was also bringing in most of the money as well. So I think Dad was just feeling like emasculated, and just being like the proud South African that he is, that would have been like the hardest thing for him to do. So I think he was struggling a lot with that, and he had to be there for us more. Whereas in South Africa, he was on the other, the provider. So he was always out working, and so was Mum, but Mum was more involved, and then it sort of flipped a little bit. And then it was like, he was kind of rattled. He was just like, fuck, like, how do I deal with these kids?
And like the sort of like the tough love, I guess, he was giving you. I think that's like, the more you think about it, was it a lot of generational stuff that maybe he got when he was growing up from his dad? And
absolutely. I think at the time, you know, like I was super, I think, really angry at Dad for how he treated me and stuff, but I couldn't see what he was going through. So it was really hard to sort of put myself in his shoes, I guess, until like later on in life, like now. But it's definitely like a generational thing. Like, it's just that proud, strong man mentality, you know. Like, you look at all my uncles, they're all like the toughest humans on earth. Like, he was the youngest brother too, so I think he got picked on a lot as when he was young. I think that he projected that onto us too, you know, trying to raise us like that, like, be tough, be better, you know, nothing's ever good enough, keep pushing.
Get over it, get on with it.
Exactly, like that sort of thing. So he never really understood how to deal with his emotions, because he's just like, you know, you're just being a pussy. Like, sorry for using that word, because not female friendly, but basically that's what the mentality was. Like, that's what they would say. Like, you're just being a pussy, get on with it, you know, sort of thing.
And I guess one of the side effects of that is that you don't learn to regulate your own emotions. And that's something that I struggled with. That I couldn't put words to the feelings that I was having. So I didn't know what the emotions I was feeling. And that's what I struggled with a lot. And like my parents, they were great. We never spoke about that sort of thing. Not until I was in my 20s. Where we could actually have a conversation. But younger days, I was going through a lot of anxiety attacks, and I just couldn't. I didn't know what the feelings were. I didn't know how to talk about it. I couldn't put words to it. And that's something that I sort of really struggled with growing up too.
Yeah, for sure. I think that I was similar in that way. I've always been very anxious and like shaky, and you know, like all the black people in South Africa used to call me Tatizela, which means like the shaky one. because I always had like super shaky hands.
Too much coffee.
Yeah, it looked like I was just on crack basically the whole time. But I think my dad said my granddad was like that too, so that's kind of interesting. Obviously have that sort of tendency, I guess, to be more on like the anxious side of things.
Yeah.
And I guess I still don't really understand what that is, like what anxiety is. It's kind of, it's a feeling, and try and describe it to someone is
almost impossible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just really difficult to describe, and it's very like overwhelming sometimes as well.
Yeah.
And obviously have had to find ways to deal with that. But I think that I definitely felt similar to you, and I couldn't really make sense of it. Yeah. So I was just like, this is what I am. This is who I am. Yeah. I am this anxious mess. And I think I've always like put that on myself. Yeah. Whereas now that I'm a bit older, I'm like, it's not your fault. Like, sort of take that step back and go, be a little bit more easier on yourself. And how do you reduce like that anxiety, and how do you handle it? Because it's part of your life. So it's kind of interesting looking back now going, well, I didn't really know what it was. I didn't know how to deal with it. It just was what it was. So
do you think that was probably the start of your mental health journey, that period in your life at school, do you reckon? Or
no, I think it started when I was pretty young. Yeah.
Before then?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I don't think I was, with Dad being really hard on me, and, I have a younger sister, like Inga, who you know as well, and I think that I shielded her a lot. Like, I spoke to her about this when we were on a trip in Bali, like not long ago, and told her how much, Dad would always blame me for everything. So if she did something wrong, it was my fault, because I'm supposed to be looking after her. So I would get like the belt or whatever, I don't know what age that sort of stopped, probably around 14, 15, I guess. But when we were younger, like I was pretty much like an adult, like how I handled myself, how I spoke to my parents, all that sort of stuff. I felt like I just sort of had to grow up really quickly, because I was in that environment of dealing with how Dad wanted me to be. He never wanted me to be a kid. Yeah. He's like, you're a man, like you're a man from the age of 9. Yeah. Like,
go work on the farm.
Yeah, go work on the farm, like struggling to carry the buckets around and shit. And I'm like, Dad, I'm tired. And he's just like, suck it up, like keep going sort of thing. Yeah. So it's sort of in that way, it was a little bit tough with all that. But that's kind of where it started, because I think I was a really sensitive person. I always have been. And I think that comes from my mum and Dad. Growing up the way he grew up, he just couldn't see that. Yeah. He didn't understand that I was different. Yeah. I wasn't like him, and how I approached things and how I dealt with emotional situations. Yeah. So I think that he giving me that tough love, that triggered that thing in my brain that sort of created the anxiety, and I didn't like how I was being treated. Yeah. So I was like, that's what sort of triggered that. When I was young, I probably would have been like 9 or 10 when it sort of started, and then obviously I've just gone through peaks and troughs, as everyone does throughout life.
But when you get that sort of reaction from your dad, it kind of snowballs, doesn't it? It doesn't make the situation any better.
Yeah, exactly. It just makes it worse.
It just reinforces it, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, again, because he wasn't a very emotional guy, he wasn't trying to understand me. Yeah. He wasn't trying to go, oh, Chris is like this because of this or that. Yeah. He was just trying to do it his way. Yeah. And it's like, I'm not you. Like, this isn't how I deal with things. Yeah. And I think that's where Mum sort of has helped me so much through my life, because she was always there going, Chris, this is who you are. You're like this. Yeah. This is how you deal with things. Yeah. And she would always say the right things, like mums do. But she's just so emotionally intelligent that she could unpack things and make them make sense for me. Yeah. Because I think we were talking about this earlier. I think both of us struggle, or initially struggle when we're younger, to differentiate our thoughts and our feelings, sort of. Or if you're having a feeling, you're trying to explain that with a thought, then you're trying to link the two together and trying to make sense of it, when really it shouldn't make sense, because you can't make sense of a feeling. Yeah. Feeling's a feeling, you know what I mean? So that was sort of the start for me, and I just sort of snowballed into these very emotional situations where I just couldn't quite deal with the feelings I was having. Yeah. I felt cornered and not in a good place. And then the thoughts started to go, and that's kind of, I think at a young age that had started because of a lot of the things Dad used to say to me and used to do to me. He pushed me around a little bit. Yeah. He was never he would never hit me or anything like that, but he would sometimes just be a little bit physical. He'd be like, come on, man up, mate, or whatever, And I was like a little kid, so I think that just those little trigger points all contributed.
Yeah.
And then that sort of made me kind of this anxious sort of, gave me these little mannerisms and stuff. So.
And I guess the pressure of also, I guess, in a way, protecting Inga, your sister, a lot of the time.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, you copped a lot of, if she would, you know, like you said, if she did something wrong.
Yeah, well, she's always been the naughty one in the family.
Chris did something wrong?
Yeah, because I've always been the quiet, like nice, polite kid. And she was like the just outrageous, creative, like little asshole, you know? Yeah.
A little bit.
In like the nicest way. Like, I mean that affectionately. But
did you take responsibility? Like, she's my sister. I
think a lot of the time I did. Yeah. So I would say, I would just own up. I'd just be like, I lost her, or I didn't see where she was, and my fault. And then Dad would like get angry at me. So she didn't know any of that, you know. I spoke to her about this like
what did she
6
say?
months ago, and she was like, she cried.
Yeah.
She's like, I can't believe you did all that. Yeah. I didn't even know that was happening. So it was just interesting how the different perspectives, how we grew up. But then I think that sort of, in a way, helped her, shield her a little bit from it as well, which I guess is a good thing in a way. Because then she wouldn't be who she is. Yeah. So it's like, it's interesting how life goes.
Yeah. And do you think your sort of dark days, rock bottom for you?
I've had a lot of those.
You've hit rock bottom a couple of times?
Yeah, probably 2 or 3 times, I think. Yeah.
And what's been the situation there?
I think the first time when I was like 16, like no one even knew what was going on, you know. Like I was just so depressed, and I was going to, Mum was like, you know, I was just doing nothing. I shut down basically. I'd just go into my room. I wouldn't go outside, but then I'd still go to school. I was like a functioning depressed person. I would just go to, and that's why they say you never know when people are depressed, because the happiest people can look depressed, you know, and I looked like that, you know. I was a prefect. I was, you know, starting 7 on the first 15 rugby team. I was house captain. I was like getting straight A's through school, you know, like if out externally looking in, you'd be like, this guy's killing it. Yeah. And then internally I was just like blowing up. I think it was just like a culmination of all the pressure of having to perform and I've always tried to live up to my dad's expectations, and they're unreachable. They're just not going to happen, you know?
Do you feel like because of that, you've got your own high standards? And
yes. So I think a lot of good things have come out of it. Yeah. Like, it gives me my drive. It gives me my passion.
Your work ethic?
It gives me vision. Yeah. It makes me want to make something of myself. Like, I feel like I'm now proving things to myself, which I've never kind of done. So, but Dad gave me all that too. So it's funny how you can get side effects from something you think's negative, but it turns you into who you are.
Yeah, 100%.
So like now I'm in a place where I can see that those can be turned into positives.
Yeah.
But at the time, it just made me depressed because I didn't really know how to change my mindset on it. So yeah, that was kind of the first time, and you know, it got really bad. Like, I just wouldn't come out of my room, and you know, I was starting to think about like suicide and stuff like that. So,
and how old were you, reckon? Then?
I was around 16, and I was going to psychologists, and eventually ended up on antidepressants, and they were giving me shit little things to do, like squeeze a pen because you're shaky. Yeah. Shit like that. And I was like,
they tried that with me too.
Yeah, and like squeeze this little ball and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I get it, but that's going to make me not shaky, but it's nothing. It's not helping for anything else. So I sort of consider myself being pretty emotionally intelligent as well. So, you know, I was listening to these people telling me what to do, and I'm like, I just felt like I knew better, which is and I was young, you know. I was just like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. I realize now that it was more practical. They were just trying to get me to do more practical things. Yeah. But, at the time I was like, this isn't going to help me.
This isn't working,
Yeah, like I understand better than you guys what's going on. You know?
I felt that too. When I first went, it was like, you don't know how I'm feeling, so how can you fix it?
Yeah, exactly.
And then we talking about it was probably the best thing for me. I did 3 sessions with a lady, and she barely said anything to me. Yeah. She just sat down and she said, speak. Yeah. And then I'll tell her something, and then there'll be a pause, and she'd go, what else? And then I'd talk again. It was like 3-hour sessions of me just venting. Yeah. And it was weird how it gave you the confidence to talk about it.
Yeah. I think I was a little bit different in that sense because I had my mum.
Yeah.
And I'd tell mum anything.
Yeah.
Like, shit, you're not meant to tell your mum. I tell my mum.
That's funny. That's funny that because the best thing that worked for me was talking to someone that I don't know.
Yeah.
For some reason, I didn't want to talk to someone that knew me.
Yeah.
That either cared about me because I didn't want any sympathy.
Yep.
I didn't want people to feel sorry for me. I don't want people to treat me any differently.
That makes sense.
I didn't want people to judge me. I just wanted to talk to someone that I know all they're doing is listening.
Yeah.
And they can go home and they don't have to worry about Elliott.
Yeah, exactly.
But if I was worried that, and even if it's like a common thing when if you talk about it with someone, it's hard for them not to feel sorry for you because of some of the things that you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard for them not to feel a little bit, or they treat you differently. And I never wanted to be treated differently just because I'm feeling sad or
bias.
Yeah.
I think that that's where I was lucky with mum because she's not biased.
Yeah.
She sees all points of view and she'll tell me like this is actually you. This isn't someone else. You know, like she just like call me on stuff.
Yeah.
And she's always been like that. So I think that's probably where I felt comfortable talking to her.
Yeah.
As opposed and then she became like my safe place. Whereas like going to see these other losers, I was like, you guys think you're smart, but you know nothing. Like my mum knows way more, you know, so it was funny how I like sort of trusted her so much with everything. And I still do now, you know,
that's built such a strong relationship early on with your mum.
Yeah. I think I honestly don't know where I'd be without her. Like I've been in some really bad places mentally and like dad was never going to help me with that, you know, and if I didn't have her there, you just wonder like what would have happened. So so just super grateful for that.
Yeah.
And I tell her that all the time.
Yeah, I bet you do.
Yeah. Like every time I see her. So
you're seeing her after this.
Yeah. Go see mum. So she's excited. So
and I think it's good to point out the importance of having close friends.
Yeah.
I mean we're in a pretty big friend circle, me and you.
Yeah.
How has some of those close friends affected you? I mean, for their support and...
Yeah. I think that right now is probably one of the craziest times. I didn't think... Now I'm like, you know, I'm turning 33 this year and I'm in a really weird spot because I've sort of just come out of a really long-term relationship and I guess to your point, like I'm living with Brock now, who I think is coming on the podcast. But I beat you, Brock. I got in first, mate. But yeah, I live with Brocky now down on the Gold Coast, and you know he's doing really great things with Sana Days, which I've sort of gotten involved with now. So me and Benny Radmel have sort of joined in with Brock, and we're like the directors of Sana now. But it's basically just Brock doing everything. We just have to sign some stuff, you know. So we're doing like the run clubs and that there, and I think that Brock's such a like closed off. He's a closed book, but he's a rock as well. Like you can just build around him. So like living with Brocco now has really helped me. Like I've been going through a really rough time, and having him there not saying anything has been like exactly what I've needed. And I think me being so fucking chatty, like I talk to him about all my feelings, it sort of makes him talk about his feelings.
Yeah. It's like the perfect combination. I feel like his personality and your personality. Yeah, it's just worked out great.
Yeah. And it's funny because we split up with our exes 2 days apart.
Yeah.
And then I get this call from Brock and I'm like, oh, this can't be good. He never calls me. He's like, let's go have a coffee. Sat down, chatted to him, and I'm like, oh, actually, just same thing happened to me. Do you need a room? And he's like, yep. Yeah. Bang. And then like a week later, it's
funny how that all sort of...
Yes, it's kind of like it was meant to be in a weird way. And like friends, I think, are super important. I think friends can be bad too, depending on if they're like real friends. Yeah. You know, it's the old Kanye West line, like real friends that, you know, like everyone just wants something from you.
Yeah. 100%.
But I think that having the right friends is important, and being aware of that is important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like I think that awareness has become a lot bigger for me. I think I've sort of just floated through life, honestly, like just feeling things and not feeling things and not really tapping into why I'm feeling them.
Yeah.
And now that I've had this rude shock of like getting out of like a 6.5 year relationship, it's like re-energized me to like prioritize what I want in life. So I've started to look at, okay, who am I surrounding myself with? How do they make me feel, and how do I react to them? Rather than just hanging out with people because they're fun, you know.
Or you don't want to be alone, or you just want company or something like.
Yeah. So I think there's two parts to it. Is like I've never really been comfortable on my own because then I have to deal with my thoughts and my feelings, and then I just turn into a crazy person. And then the other element of it is being aware of who I'm around and how they impact my life.
Yeah, the right people.
Yeah. So I've got a whole new friendship group down there. Like I've gotten, you know, I'm taking these boys to South Africa in 5 weeks too.
Such a good bonding trip.
Yeah, which would be crazy. And I've only known them for a year, really, not even, like 10 months. And a few of my good mates from here pulled out of the trip. So I was like, you know what? Like these guys have been here for me through like a really tough time, and I'd love to take them back and show them where I'm from and stuff. And they just jumped on it. They're like, bang, we're doing it. And I think they're just doing really positive things with their lives, and we're in a similar life stages. Yeah. And they're just good humans. So I'm like, we're not just drinking piss and going out and doing stuff. Like we're running, we're doing active things, we're building businesses, we're buying houses, we're talking about the same things. And I think that's been positive for me because it's given me direction, and it's given me like that sort of stimulation I need to improve my life rather than
push and that drive, doesn't it? Like
because I felt really stagnant. You know, I felt like I wasn't moving forward, and I felt like I needed this sort of shock to push me forward and take me to that next level.
Absolutely. So, you almost reflect the people that you are spending your time with. So
absolutely. So it's super important.
You touched on earlier the long-term breakup.
Yeah.
Was that probably... We spoke about rock bottom times, and you mentioned a few. Do you reckon that was one of them?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's it is different. Yeah. You know, I think the first time when I was 16, I was so sad but caught up in my own head, sort of thing, and you know, I decided to break it off with my ex, and I think that it's the saddest I've ever been. Like in a way where your heart feels like it's going to fall out, sort of way. You know, like it was just really painful. Feeling that and having to do that to someone that you really love, and like, you know, I think I'll always love her a little bit, and it's really hard to let that. It's you become like one person. It's like getting rid of a part of yourself, but then it's also, you know, if you're not happy in that situation and you're not growing, sometimes you have to make really fucking hard decisions to get you to be the person who you need to be and to be happy with yourself. So at the end of the day, I was kind of I had to do it for myself. I didn't know why. And that made it so hard. Yeah,
to explain it.
Yeah. Because, you know, it's like you're with this person, they're amazing, they're lovely. All your friends love them. They have all these amazing qualities, but they're just not fulfilling that hole that you have in yourself. And not that they should. They should never have to feel that. But I think that sometimes in life you have to walk on your own to figure those things out. 100%. And you can't have those distractions of other people coddling you and looking after you, because then you'll never help yourself. And I think that's what it came down to. I became complacent. I became lazy. I stopped doing the things I wanted to do. I just talked about them. And so I was like, I feel like us being together is sort of like a catalyst for that in a weird way. And it wasn't like a malice situation. It was just... it was me. I became like sort of lazy within myself and stopped doing what I wanted to do, and I felt like that's what I needed to do to sort of progress in life, and it hasn't been easy, you know. Like I'm not saying I did it and I feel relief and like, you know, people say break up with people and it's like a weight off their shoulders and stuff. It didn't really feel like that for me. It felt like mourning, like loss, and which is weird to say because I did it. So it's like some days I just feel like a psychopath, you know.
So like constant battle, isn't it?
Constant battle, like why did I do it? Because they didn't do anything to you, you know. So it's like, how do you explain it?
How do you tell them that you didn't do anything?
Well, you can't. You know, and we don't talk anymore. And she's moved on like pretty quickly, which I'm happy for her. So it's just like.
So you never got the opportunity to. Because I know at the time it's hard to put into words, but after some self-reflection, and you can think about exactly what was happening at that time. Yeah. But then it's also, because it's been so long, you can't just go back and say, hey, listen, this is why 6 months ago we broke up.
Yeah. You can't tell. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter anymore. Yeah. You don't bother that person. Yeah. They've given you a lot of themselves. Like, go and let them be happy. Like, stop dragging them back into your shit, you know? Yeah. So I'm like happy. I just want to leave her to do her thing, and I respect her, so I don't want to step on her toes anymore. Like,
Yeah.
just leave her alone.
Yeah.
You've done enough damage, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that I probably did try and go and explain myself a few times, but the way that I did it was selfish.
Yeah.
It was like internal reflection stuff I was sending her.
Yeah.
And she don't have to deal with that. It's not her problem.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, I think when, I guess something that you can sort of learn out of that is like stepping back in those situations when you're going through like a big life event and you're hurting. Don't act out of emotion. Like, remove yourself, like step aside and, you know, sort of try and look at it like you're looking in at yourself. And go, hold on, okay, if you say this, how's that person going to feel? And how do you feel about that person? Would you want to do that to them? Then, you know, that sort of helps you separate yourself from the situation and from the emotion. And then you can deal with things in a way where you can be proud of yourself. And I think that's all anyone wants.
100%.
Just to be proud of themselves and how they handle like different situations. So,
do you reckon at that point was the start of your self-development journey, I think?
Yeah,
I
think...
Or at least diving pretty deep into it.
Yeah, I think that the way I see myself or have seen myself my whole life is as a kid. And I think that everyone sort of does still. You know, they all sort of see themselves as that child. But I've always had that personality. Like, I'm the fun larrikin kid running around at parties. I always loved partying, like going out and, you know, being loud and out there and stuff. But I think that I always used that as like an escape for how I was feeling and like not really dealing with things and, you know, probably drinking too much here and there. And I've always got my active side of things, but I do everything 0 or 100. So it's like,
I know you do.
If we're going hard, we're going hard.
Yeah.
So
we're going for a run. It's for 30k run.
Yeah, it's 30k. It's not like a 3k.
You're not going for a jog.
Yeah, my mate's just like, I don't understand you. Like, there are, I mean, there are a lot of people like that too. So,
and that's I think that's a little bit of your dad coming out too, because he's telling you if you're going to do something, you do it right.
Yeah,
you give 100%. You don't do anything half-assed.
Yeah, that's it. And I think that's the biggest thing he's given me.
Yeah.
Like, he gives me he's instilled motivation in me every day to get up and just do as much as I can with the day.
Yeah.
And that's something he's always sort of said, I want you to have the life you want. And he's always sort of steered me a little bit. He's like, I think you like this. You should go this way. Or I think you like that. And he knows I have that drive and motivation, like no give-in sort of mentality. So he's like, whatever you do, you're going to do well, but you just need to keep following that. Yeah. So being so hard on me when I was young has also like really helped me like be who I am. So, yeah.
What are your, I guess, your non-negotiables, your pillars of living a healthy and full life? You touched on running, and I know you're quite active.
Mm-hmm. I actually learned a lot of this from like a holistic psychologist I went to. Yeah. On my second time I sort of hit rock bottom when I was living down on the Gold Coast. I was just drinking a lot. Yeah. I was under high work stress. I used to work for like a big umbrella company. I was flying to Sydney all the time and doing all this work, and you know, I was working 12, 14-hour days, and I was stressed for a 60,000 job. I was just like, what am I doing? Yeah. And you know, doing all the wrong things. I was drinking, like, because I'm an anxious person, any stimulants like just get me going. And you know, I was like living with a dude who smoked cigarettes, and every now and then I'd, you know, have a ciggy here and there, and we'd drink a fair bit, and it was just that party lifestyle, like sort of the work environment as well. Like we'd go to the Rolling Stone Awards, and you know, it's just parties. You know, so that spiked my anxiety, and that made me realize what I need now. So and then that psychologist sort of pointed that out to me as well. Like, what are those things that make you tick? And it's first of all, for me, it's physical things. So I think that you can't fix everything with physical, but I think that those fundamentals need to be there to base your mental health off, because your physical sort of dictates your mental a lot of the time. So for me, it's like obviously having really good sleep is a massive one, and being like militant style about it. I'm rubbish at it. Brock will rip me to shreds for this. But
it's important having discipline.
Having discipline is the biggest thing. So for me, routine is massive. Like, you know, we exercise so much, you know, like we do like the Monday leg session, then we played 2 games of touch last night, then we'll do a 10k run on Tuesday morning, then we'll do a 6k run on Wednesday morning, go to the gym, do upper on Wednesday afternoon, then we'll do a cardio session Thursday, cardio session Friday, take Saturday off, long run Sunday. Yeah. So we're like constantly exercising, but it's like I wasn't doing that when I was in my relationship, because I I started just doing what my partner was doing. And what she wanted to do isn't what I need to be happy with myself. So now I've completely changed my lifestyle, and I guess those pillars are having good people around me, the physical part of it, and then being disciplined with like my work and having something to focus on, like having something to drive towards, and something to get up for in the morning. Like I think a lot of people have, you know, dead end jobs they're not happy with, and they get up and they're like, I just want to get my paycheck in and get out. I feel like that's a key thing in life, is like find something at least closely related to what you think you might like and try get a job in that. And I think a lot of people never act on that, and that's why they're always constantly not happy with what they're doing. So yeah, that's a big one. Like have something you want to wake up for every day, and for me that's my business and growing that. And I've always wanted to have my own business and hire people and work with people, and that's what I'm doing now. And you know, I'm sort of in the early stages of that, but you know, I've got my office down there now, and I've got a few people in, and I'm fucking proud of myself. Like I get up and I'm like, dude, like you've got 4 employees, and
you're excited to get out of bed in the morning.
I'm like, I got to go look after these people, like, you know, and I'm like, I got to go achieve things and make sure deadlines are hit, and that's what, and that keeps you on track. And then it also keeps you away from the bad stuff. Like
100%.
Going partying and doing that stuff too much. You know, I think that still needs to be in your life, that fun element. And if that's what you like doing, you like going partying, then
it's just got to be that healthy balance, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think I'll always have that in my life.
Oh, yeah.
But it's now how I deal with it. You know what I mean? Like I'm not, I'm using all those other elements to keep me on the direction I need to be proud of myself. And then every now and then I'll allow myself to go out for drinks.
Celebrate the little wins.
And blow out a little bit and not judge myself for it.
Yeah, not be so hard on yourself.
Exactly. So
those insecurities that we talked about at the start, are they still around? And if so, do you just know how to manage them better?
Yeah. I think that's what it is. So I think that people look at mental health in the wrong way sometimes. I think that they think it's something that can be cured, and I don't think that it can. And I think mental health is such a broad term as well. Like there's so many, I think it's every individual's got technically a different mental health disorder. You know what I mean? Like no one's feeling the same as you. No one's thinking of things the same as you. No one's processing things like you. What you do won't work for someone else. It's about like finding what does work for you and then sticking to that and being regimented with it. You have to have discipline. If you struggle with anxiety and depression, you have to have discipline, in my opinion, because if you don't, you stop doing the things that keep that your brain in that you know, train of thought it needs to be in for you to be happy and functional. And once you slide out of those routines, and that's what happens. So if I have a weekend where I have like a blowout or whatever, or if I'm just feeling not good, I just go straight back. I love Mondays. I'm just like straight back into Monday. We're going to the gym. We're doing this. And it's literally, you stop thinking about it. Once you do it, it's just normal. It's just part of life.
It's like a reset straight away, isn't it?
So you just reset and you're back into it, and you feel like you're achieving. And I think that's all it is. Like, just do anything, even if it's small. Go for a walk on the beach. That'll reset you, and then make sure you've got like your routine and that sort of...
your non-negotiables that you've got.
Because if you stop doing that, and to your point, if you stop doing that, that's when you fall off the rails again, because you don't have the things that bring you back to center. And that could be playing chess.
It could be
that could be calling your mum. I'm not saying it's exercise, but for me it is, and that's how I deal with it. So
what we've touched on today is how important it is talking about our mental health, whether it's anxiety, depression, whatever it is. How important it is to find someone. You were lucky enough that you've got your mum, who's been your rock, really.
Absolutely.
And how important it is to talk to people about it, whether it's seeing someone or finding a family member to talk to. It's crucial into taking those steps into bettering yourself. Isn't it?
Sure. Definitely. I think for me, because I'm such an open person, I'll just talk to anyone about it. Like I'll go out on a night and just grab like Bill and just be like, "Wait, Bill, how you feeling, mate?" Like I think that's why I have so many friends, is because I always ask them how they are. And I think so many of us just talk about, "Hey mate, how are you?" "Oh yeah, good. Yeah, just working and walking the dog, you know." Same old. And you're like, sick. Like tell us a little bit about how you're feeling, you know? And I always prod around people. I'm like, oh, how do you feel? Like, are you happy? Like, what do you... And I think that's why I have like good connections with my friends. But I guess that's what you need, where you need to start. Like, your friends are your comfort zone. So at least you don't have to tell them everything, but you're allowed to have conversations with your mates. And I think that's an easier transition for guys than going straight to a psychologist. Yeah. Like, trying to get some of our mates to go to a psychologist is like drawing blood from a rock, you know, like you're just not going to do it. So I think that's important. And knowing that you have those close friends you can trust, that's where I would start for sure. And I think I do that, and I lean on my friends a lot for that, and I apologise for it a lot.
But that's what we love about you, is that you cut out the small talk. There's no small talk with you.
Exactly, yeah.
I love it. Doesn't matter what time of day it is. There's zero small talk. It's not, you know, how's your job or whatever. It's always how you feeling. Yeah. What's going on in your life.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, and that's what I love that. Because as I've gotten older, I hate small talk.
Yeah,
I went to a gathering, and there was a few people there, and the most I got out of some people were job, girlfriend. Yeah. That was it.
It's the same combo.
House, job, girlfriend, house.
Yeah, exactly.
I was just like, give me something else. And you're working hard for it. You're working too hard for it. And like, we're all friends here. It's like...
Yeah, exactly.
Give me something.
Yeah, that's the thing, hey. I think it's like just asking them a few different questions. And sometimes if you notice things about your friends, like they're not a bit off or whatever, just start like poking around. Yeah. Because like they're probably just going to go, all right, I'll tell you. Yeah. And then they'll just start like saying stuff, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So like sometimes maybe it's not even on the person who's feeling terrible. It's on their friends to be there for them too.
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah. Silver linings out of your journey. We talked about the lessons that you've learnt through this process. What are they?
Yeah, so I think I'm still learning. I think I'm just going to keep learning forever. Like, I don't think there's any answers to anything. But I think that being more aware has been the biggest thing. So being more aware of like what I like and what is healthy for me. And then like I actually went and wrote that down. I was like, these are the things that make me feel sad. These are the things that make me feel good. Stick to this lane as much as possible, and then dabble in that one every now and then, but stay in this one. So, but when you're in situations, I feel like we just go through life without being aware of our situation. Like, why am I standing in this room right now doing this? Is it just because my mate said to do it? Does this align with what I'm about? What am I about? And so now what I've started to do is like go inside myself and be like introspective and go, what are you about? Yeah. Who are you? And I feel like I've had to reinvent myself over the last 6 months since my breakup, because I lost myself. I became the relationship. You know, I became her boyfriend. I became whatever we were together, and I lost myself. So I've gone back and looked at myself and gone, okay, this is what I align with. How do I maintain that? And then now I'm going to put myself in situations that align with what I'm about. And once you start aligning with things you're about, you're happy. And that's what I've learnt.
Perfect. 2 questions.
Yep.
Deepest fear. Do you have one?
Yes.
I've got one if you want me to share mine.
Yeah, I'd love to hear yours.
My deepest fear is regret. So my fear is getting to 50 and not doing the things that I wanted to do when I was 30 or 20. And that's killing me. Yeah. So one of the things is doing this podcast. Yep. One of the other things is learning piano.
Yeah. Sick.
And I would love to learn the piano.
Yep.
In 20 years when I'm 50, 20 years of playing the piano, you'd hope to be not too bad.
Yeah.
But that's a skill that I've been in love with for ages. Yeah. And
sick.
I wish I could go back and not play footy. Yeah. And just learn the piano.
Nah, you were too good at footy, mate. You'd be wasted talent.
I was fishing there.
Yeah. You caught me. Yeah. You caught me. Yeah.
So what was yours?
I think that mine has always been not reaching my potential or what I think my potential is, and not like holding myself back from being the person that I want to be. And I think that there's always going to be an element of that. But I think that aligning myself with my values will hopefully start to get me closer to where I want to be. Yeah. Like, I've always considered myself as being pretty smart, pretty confident, at least to other people. And like, I want to be able to fully be the person that I see myself as, because I think that I have confidence issues being that guy, because I feel like maybe I can't pull it off, or I make excuses for that. But I've always wanted to be successful with my business and, you know, have a good friendship circle around me, which I think I do now. And I'm ticking a lot of the boxes, but I think that I would hate to be at my, you know, on my deathbed and not be happy with myself, and not know that I've sort of given it a good crack at finding inner happiness within myself. And you're not going to be happy all the time, but you'll know when you reach that point, you'll be like, you know, I'm happy with what I've done, and I'm scared that I'll hold myself back from being happy. That's the hardest, that's the biggest fear I have in life, because my mental problems hold me back from being happy. I self-sabotage. And I want to get out of my own way and just get to that guy. When I shake his hand, that's when I'll know.
That's what it is. It's almost getting out of your own way.
It is.
Sometimes you're holding yourself back, and you just got to let go. The wind's at your back.
Yeah, for
just
sure.
let go, and it will be fine.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's probably the biggest one for me.
The last time you cried, I know you've touched on you're pretty emotional.
Yeah, I do. I cry a fair bit.
Yeah.
I mostly cry during movies, which is weird because my dad does too. Like, we'll watch like that, like, you know, that dog movie where the dog dies and everyone cries, Marley and me or some shit. Man, that one gets me.
So mine too. P.S. I love you. In the Notebook. I can't do it.
Yeah, that's the one with where he writes the notes after he dies, and then what the hell? Who thinks of that?
He plans all this stuff out for her.
That's insane movie. They're just trying to make everyone cry with that one.
I can't. I've done it. I've cried. I can't watch him again. Jordan puts them on. And then I'm sitting down watching it. But I think I cried a lot during my breakup last 6 months. Like, I was just driving around the car just crying. I was bawling my eyes out. With the music, like, real loud. Yeah, it helped for sure. I don't cry that often. I cry for stupid stuff, like movies, like not real stuff. But if it's real life, I just don't. You can't get a tear out of me. But this last 6 months has been pretty emotional for me. So it's great.
You know, I was going down to the beach and just reading a book and then just bawling my eyes out.
It's almost like a bit of grieving, isn't it? Like,
it is. It's sort of like saying goodbye to someone and then trying to process. Did you do the right thing? Did you not do the right thing? And sort of being sad about decisions you've made, but also knowing that you've had to make them, and all those realizations. It's just a ball of emotion. You kind of got to let it out. You know, and, you know, I was writing big messages to mum about it while I was crying and that. Like, you know, it's nothing, like, I think it's just so healthy. We have the tear ducts for a reason.
Exactly.
Get it out.
Yeah, you need to. I haven't told you this, but I've got a little closing tradition.
Okay.
And I don't actually ask the last question.
Okay.
I get a loved one, whether it be a friend or a family member.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
the whole premise of it is to ask a question or to say something that they never have before.
Okay.
So the first up, we've got your sister Inga.
Oh, no way. This is sick.
So your sister wanted to ask you something, and I love this question. What do you love about yourself? And I'll let you have a think, because I love this question, because so often that we self-criticise, say that I'm not good enough, I'm not fit enough, I can't do this. And it's very easy for us to say that about ourselves. But we don't often enough say what we love about each other or about ourselves. Yeah,
that's a hard one. I think that I'm so... I'm always beating myself up a lot.
Yeah, I know.
So it's a hard one to say. It's easy to say about everyone else.
Yeah.
I think one thing I like about myself is how empathetic I am towards people around me and how I can feel what they feel. And I find it funny that I can't feel that for myself sometimes. But I like that I am able to put myself in someone else's shoes and then have a conversation with them about it and help them. So I think that's cool. And not help them. Sometimes it's just like having a laugh. Like, you know, I just crack stupid jokes and then we just laugh. Like, people need that. And I think
is helping. That does help.
Yeah. So I think it's just my awareness of reading the room and feeling people's emotions and then being able to react in a way that sort of
positive
gives them a little nudge. So probably just my level of empathy towards others.
We got one more. This is from your mum.
Oh no!
I read this.
Get the tissues out.
I read this, and it was it really hit home to me.
Yeah.
She actually sent in a poem.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You're going to read it to me?
I'm going to read the poem to you.
Okay. And do I have to say anything else?
You don't have to say anything.
Okay.
But she wrote...
Not Mum. Anyone but Mum.
She wrote this to you. She said, as an English teacher, I often find inspiration in poetry and literature. The sheer weight and relentlessness of mental health can be overpowering, but this poem really brings home the message that pain and adversity makes us stronger. You don't have to look at me if you don't want to look at me. But she wrote it in a poem, and it's titled Good Timber.
Did Mum write this?
I'm not too sure if your mum wrote this or not.
Okay.
But she's a legend if she did.
Okay. I'll ask her after this.
This got a bit emotional when I was reading it to myself.
Okay.
Good timber, the tree that never had to fight for sun and sky and air and light, but stood out in the open plain and always got its share of rain. Never became a forest king, but lived and died a scrubby thing. The man who never had to toil to gain and farm his patch of soil, who never had to win his share of sun and sky and light and air. Never became a manly man, but lived and died as he began. Good timber does not grow with ease. The stronger the wind, the stronger the trees. The further the sky, the greater the length. The more the storm, the more the strength. By sun and cold, by rain and snow, in trees and men, good timbers grow. Where the thickest lies the forest growth, we find our patriarchs of both. And they hold counsel with the stars, whose broken branches show the scars of many winds and much of strife. This is the common law of life.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it struck a nerve with me.
What do you take away from that?
All the stuff that I thought was wrong about me, all the things that I wish didn't happen to me, all the things that I did to myself, was just a lesson. And I used to hate some of the things that I did to myself or the things that happened to me. And now I know that it was just a lesson that I need to learn, and I'm grateful for all that now, because it's built the person I am today, and I'm so proud of the person I am today.
Yeah, awesome.
And I wouldn't be the person I am if I didn't go through all that hardship, and I've learnt so much of it.
Good timber.
It's good timber.
Yeah.
So that really struck a chord with me, because it put into words sort of my journey and how proud I am of myself for the things that I've gone through. And
that's awesome.
And then I got myself out of it. Like, people can help you. You can talk to people. People can help you. But if you're not willing to change, you won't change.
Agreed.
And I'm super proud of myself that I put in the work, the hard work, and to get myself out of some situations.
Yep.
And I'm on such a good track in life and everything. So
yeah, I think that's the thing, right? Like, you have to find the strength to pull yourself out of things, because at the end of the day, you're all you've got.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a good sort of analogy for things that happen in your life. And once you start looking at life as stop looking at it as like things are happening to me and things are happening for me, then it changes your mindset on things, because then you can go, okay, I just went through a really traumatic thing, but what come out of it? You know, how can I now use it to better myself?
Yeah, 100%.
Because bad stuff's going to happen all the time. So it's like, that's just a great way to
put it.
Sort of summarize that. Yeah. And it's cool. And like mum always tells me, she's like, I'm proud of you because you've always been you.
Yeah.
You've never been anybody else. You haven't changed for anybody else. You've always been the same since you're a little kid till now. And she's like, that's rare. That's good timber.
It is.
Because you're not changing for anybody else. You're just staying on course. You're just that stump in the middle of the desert, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
I love that.
So it's really cool. It's cool to see. Like I told you, her empathy levels are just through the roof.
Yeah.
Like she
knows what's the right thing to say.
Exactly, always. So, and she just,
I wasn't expecting her to put that in too.
Yeah,
she's like, you're a legend.
Yeah, and I think that mum, she sends me things like that a lot,
and that helped me too. I didn't think it was going to help. That was for you, but I read that going, fuck, that's great.
Yeah, no, it's really good. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that. That was awesome.
Thanks for coming on today, mate. I appreciate it.
Thanks, El.
It wasn't so bad, was it?
No, it was great.
It was great.
Yeah, it was good.
You just want to keep going.
Yeah, we should just do this again, man. I love it. Little therapy session for the boys, eh?
Thanks, mate.
Awesome. Cheers, El.